Hey guys, welcome back to the episode. It's Peter here, and we're going to dive into things. So, today we're going to be talking a lot about skills. I think it's taken for granted sometimes because let's say you're really good at something, like you're good at sports, or you're good at music, or you're good at media buying, whatever you're good at. Sometimes it's just so natural for you that it's not always the most intentional thing that you've been building up. It's not something you're really actively sitting down and thinking I'm going to improve these skills, but it's something that I've been thinking a lot about lately because what sparked my kind of thinking about this is I know that I have some individual people in that I know that have been struggling to find a job, right? And sometimes it's been hard to hear these stories because you look around our industry and it seems like everyone is just like thriving, right? Like you go to a conference and it seems like everyone's making money, and it's like the affiliates making money and the media buyer and the advertiser and the it seems like money's just growing on trees practically in our industry, which is probably a good thing. But it got me thinking. I'm like, man, it's kind of difficult out there for some people that are following this route of it's kind of like the rich dad, poor dad route where they're told go to college, get a good job, just like go to college and get a job. But there's also been this trend lately where it's kind of like even worse than go to college and get a job. There's been this trend with some people where it's like don't go to college at all and get a job. And it's like, man, like if you're going to go the job route, you might as well maybe do the college too, just so you have that credentials at least, right? But so it's just got me thinking because it's not the first. I've just heard multiple stories where it's like a friend or a family friend or something has struggled so much to find a job. And what I realized is that I believe that the skills are so important because if you have a skill that's highly, highly in demand and pretty much very difficult to replace or unreplaceable, you're pretty much always going to have work. You're always going to have a job. You're always going to be able to make money with that skill. And what I like so much is I was watching YouTube and there was Warren Buffett and his business partner Munger, and they were saying such a wise statement. They were talking about inflation and what do we do about inflation. And what they said is that they said one of the best things to do to combat inflation is to increase your own earning power. It's like you can invest in stuff all day, like stocks and Bitcoin and like real estate. You can invest in these kind of like traditional assets all day, but they're saying just one of the best things to do is just figure out how to make more money yourself, like demand a higher price. Like let's say you're an electrician. It's like, well, maybe you can become the best electrician, and even if inflation is raging, maybe you can just be in so high demand that you're just a little bit more expensive than all the other electricians, but the inflation doesn't really bother you because you just charge a higher price, right? And you charge that premium for what you deliver. So when it comes to success, here's what I've realized when thinking about this over the last couple days. I've realized that it all really boils down to skills, but then the skills have to be combined with these character traits because here's the problem. You can have people that are very, very skilled, but then if those skills are not really married with the backbone of work ethic and discipline and um, hard work, not being lazy, time management, right? And I've seen this myself in the music industry. So I don't know if a lot of you guys know about this, but before I got into entrepreneuring and business and online marketing, I was actually pursuing a music path. I went to high school and I was really big into guitar. So I was really big into jazz guitar. I did rock guitar. And I was so convinced that I wanted to be a professional musician that I actually went to music school. I went to Berkeley College of Music like all throughout the summer when I was in high school, and I even went to college for music. Like music was my major in college. And then what happened was I just realized that the space was very competitive. It's like even though I thought I was a good guitarist, the issue was I wasn't the best guitarist, and I wasn't even like the fourth best guitarist. And the music space is so competitive that if you're not like the best musician or like one of the best, that could be make it or break it for like the entire career and industry and stuff. If you just it's very very competitive. So what I did was I ended up dropping out of the music school and I ended up taking a year off from college entirely. I lived at my parents' house and I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do in my life. And then what happened was during that year, I got introduced to multi-level marketing. There was this local guy in Greenwich, Connecticut that was always driving like these Ferraris and Teslas and had like this $3 or $4 million home in like some part of Greenwich, which was probably pretty nowadays with all the inflation. Oh, 3 or 4 million is not even that much. It's we've got such a like different perspective on like what things cost these days. But 15 years ago or 12 years ago, a $3 or $4 million house was like a lot of money. It's probably worth like 8 million today or something, right? So this guy was just crushing it with the multi-level marketing, and he convinced me to join his network marketing thing. And the company was based around electricity. It was like convincing people to lower their electric bills through a third-party supplier. So this really caught my attention because I said, man, okay, like this is something different. It seems lucrative. This guy's got the Ferraris and the pool, and this guy was really flashy. He had like this saltwater pool that he would like heat to 80 degrees like all throughout the winter, and he had this whole thing where it's like no matter what the season was, they like always were swimming in their outdoor pool, and like this dude was just like into his things or whatever. But I guess in a sense, the shiny objects did catch my attention. I said, okay, there seems to be money to be made in this industry. So what I did was I got involved in that, and then how I got into the internet marketing stuff is I was trying to figure out how to promote the MLM thing. Like, how do I sign up people for the MLM? How do I get a sale? How do I I was able to recruit like 10 or 20 of my friends and family into the MLM thing, but then afterwards, I just realized if I don't figure out something, it's not going to grow. So that's when I started to explore the ads, Craigslist, Facebook, Google, blogging, SEO. That's when I got into the internet marketing industry. It was through this springboard of trying to figure out how to use online marketing to promote this business that I had. And then what that led to was one thing after another. I realized, oh my goodness, you don't have to just promote biz ops and MLMs on the internet. You can promote anything. Auto insurance, you can promote supplements, you can promote rental homes, you can promote life insurance and health and wellness and everything under the sun. So then I started diving deeper into this stuff. Now, I'm going to kind of tell two stories at the same time here because I was talking about skills and I was also talking about discipline. So going back to this discipline thing, it has to be combined with the skills. This is very, very important because going back to the music story, when I was at music school, there was always a lot of really good musicians that were really good. When I went to Berkeley, there was this kid named Tyrone. Okay, Tyrone was like a prodigy. He played the saxophone, and his ear was so good, it was incredibly talented. Like this, I've never seen something like this. So like, you would play a jazz solo, right? Like like whatever, right? You play like a 30-second jazz solo on the speaker. This guy was able to play it back like perfectly by ear. I'm like, dude, this is just like really, really impressive because I've seen some professional musicians be able to do that to like some degree. Like, right? Like, even the guys that are full blown professional, if you play a tape or you play some kind of solo or something, the really good guys can probably, by ear, play back maybe like 20 seconds, like some part, but this was like beyond what I've ever seen. Like you could play like the most complex jazz thing of like Miles Davis or John Coltrane. It's like anything you played, the dude was able. It was just like crazy. So the skills were just really the most phenomenal skills I've seen in my life, and that's why he was at the school on full scholarship. But then here's the issue. It was like those skills were not really married with like the discipline and the character stuff. So it's like even though this dude was like the most skilled at the saxophone, he wasn't really going anywhere with his career or development because his personal life, his character was just such a mess. It was like not married whatsoever with the skills. It's like he was just smoking weed all day, doing drugs all day, like you could hardly like interact with him as like a human. He was so like weird at like communicating, and it was like because the skills were not combined with the just personal attributes of you know like hard work and not being late. And he was also like really lazy too. It's like he had all these skills, but he was just so lazy. He's just like missing classes all the time, like didn't even show up to the concerts, like stuff like that, right? So it just goes to show that in any aspect of life, you have to have the skills, and then the skills have to be combined with those traits. And when you have those two things working together, that's when things can really take off. So, going back to my story, so I got involved in the internet marketing stuff to figure out how to grow the MLM. That's when I realized I needed to get my skills together. Now, thankfully, I think what happened for me was I started growing skills and the personal development stuff hand in hand. Because when I was in the multi level marketing business, that was all about personal development. It wasn't so much about skills, like trade trade skills per se. It was about personal development. It's like literally when I was driving around with the guy in the Ferrari going from meeting to meeting, it's like we literally had the Jim Rohn, the Brian Tracy, the Tony Robbins type of audios going, like pumping ourselves up about thinking big, think and grow rich, these things like that, kind of things, right? So, what happened for me is at a very young age in college, high school, just in this gap year and beyond between college, I got really immersed in the personal development stuff and I got really into it. I was reading all the books, Win Friends and Influence People, The Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was really, really soaking this stuff up. Sometimes I would take a flight, to California or something, and the entire flight I was like listening to a personal development tape. It's like everyone else was just watching some junk garbage thing on like television. And I'm like, thinking about building a wealth or building a business or becoming an entrepreneur or something, right? So this is all part of it, the skills, the development. What I recommend too is that here's what this podcast is going to teach you. This podcast is going to teach you how to be more deliberate about these things. Like I said, there's a lot of people that have these skills, but it just happens so naturally. For me, even though I was kind of deliberate at the time, it's not like I've been that deliberate lately on the personal development. Sometimes I've been so busy lately that the only time for me to do personal development lately has been on the plane. If I go to a trade show and maybe I have a day of travel, then I've been able to soak up a lot of books, personal development. But it's like, man, like maybe I should be more deliberate about this kind of stuff. Maybe you should set aside 30 minutes a day or like an hour a day where you are watching YouTube videos by these influential people, like getting yourself motivated. Motivation is a big part. Sometimes people are saying, oh, this personal development stuff, it's all kind of hype. I don't even care if a lot of it is hype. The motivation could be very important. Like a motivated entrepreneur versus a non-motivated entrepreneur could make a really big difference. Talk to a motivated one and they could be moving mountains, and then a non-motivated entrepreneur could just be kind of lazy, checked out, already made their money, and just not excelling as much. So what I recommend doing for you guys is really, if you have time, or just make the time, just set aside like 30 minutes a day or up to 1 hour or 45 minutes a day even if you can't do it daily, even if you're committing like every other day, and you're reading these books. A really good book that I read recently was Tillman Fertitta's "Shut Up and Listen." It was a really really good book. It really taught some really good skills that I took home to my company, and I was able to implement a lot of stuff from the book into my company. I said, guys, we need to treat our customers better. We need to have better customer service. We need much better hospitality. If a customer wants something, we need to be able to go head over heels to accomplish that for the customer. There's a lot of good things in that book that pertain to just treating the customer the best way. And think about it, everyone that you're working with, that you're providing a service for, is basically your customer. I mean, let's say that you have a job, your boss is kind of like your customer. Let's say you are an affiliate marketing. If you're an affiliate marketer, the network that you're driving traffic to, they're essentially your customer. You know, if you work with direct clients, that direct client's your customer, right? So customer service is key. Um, so when I started learning these skills, it was the combination of the skills and personal development. So what I want you guys to do with this audio is I want you to think to yourself, where do you need to get better? Okay, and start working on that mostly at first. So do you need to get better at skills, or do you need to get better at the personal development aspect of things, like your discipline, your time management, your focus? It's all like very, very important, and it all matters a lot. I mean, for me, even I saw it all matters. Like I remember towards the end of last year, like things just lightened up a little bit in the business. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take a couple weeks off, like 2 or 3 weeks off, don't work very much, and it's like I'm glad that I did it and I got some rest and free time and stuff. But at the same time, I'm like, man, like it's kind of like the discipline like went out the window a little bit too. It's like now that I'm you know back in the groove of things, it's very important to have like a disciplined schedule. It's like you wake up, you do your work, you don't get distracted. Don't get distracted by stuff, like just focus on the goal, focus on what you're trying to accomplish, focus on, you should also have goals too. If you're just doing the same thing that you're doing, the biggest problem that I've seen in our industry a lot of times is affiliates just doing the same thing just for years on end. Like sometimes I've shown up to affiliate conferences and it's like the same affiliate that was at the conference 7 years ago promoting like the same type of offer. And it's like, dude, really? You haven't like changed? You haven't grown? You haven't innovated? You haven't done anything new in 7 years? It's just like you and your like friend, and you don't have any more team. It's like it was just you and your friend like 7 years ago, and now it's you and your friend today. No team, no employees. Like you have no like operations. You have no real company, and like nothing's improved, nothing's growing. It's like, dude, let's get more motivated. Let's grow. Let's think of those brand new things that we can do. So, what I want you to do, I want you to analyze yourself realistically and be like, what needs to improve the most? Do you need to get your act together the most with your discipline, your hard work, your scheduling? Do you just need to be more motivated? Do you need to be more fired up? Do you need more goals? Maybe you're just kind of lazy. I don't know. Like, do you need more fire under you, and do you need more personal development, or do you need more skills? Or are you kind of like fiery, but then you like don't really know how to media buy very well. You don't know where to find a good offer. You don't know how to optimize a campaign. No matter what ad you make, it kind of stinks. Like you gotta analyze yourself realistically, and once you determine where you need the most help, then you can start intentionally building yourself up and training in those areas. So, I mean, for me personally, my skills that I'm working on developing right now are more leadership skills and also visionary skills as well. For me, as the CEO of our company, it's one of the core responsibilities that I have right now is figuring out how to bring the entire business to the next level. Like, what's going to be that new vertical? What's going to be that new, um, business venture? What's going to be that new way? What's going to be the new traffic source? What's going to be the new traffic source that our company masters? Are we going to become a master at like one or two brand new traffic sources that we've never really done in a long? It's figuring out the what is that next thing that's going to bring us to the next level. And that's what I've been doing for 12 years is always finding that next thing, that next vertical, that next type of offer, that next sector of the market, the next biz op, the next venture, the next whatever it is. But what I've realized is I need to improve on this skill. Like, this is a skill of forward thinking. It's a skill of ideas. It's a skill of finding that next breakthrough. And what I've realized lately is that in order for our company to grow a lot more, I think there's going to be two things that need to happen. And a lot of times when I make these podcasts, a lot of our company is listening to the podcast. So if you guys are listening, that's great, but this podcast can also serve people in any company. There's two things that I think we need to do as a company, my company, to go to the next level. I think the first thing we need to do is we need to improve the visionary component and the idea component of other people in the business. I think one of the biggest problems our business has had, if I want to be frank, is that a lot of times it's been up to myself and a few core people to be always thinking of that next best idea. If you think of a business like Apple with Steve Jobs, do you think the iPhone actually was invented by Steve Jobs? Do you think he actually invented the tablet, the iPad? Do you think he actually invented the apps and the App Store? Probably not. So what's amazing about some of these other companies is the way they're structured is they have innovators within the company. And I think that's what's going to take our business to the next level. Personally, is when it's not just me and it's not just my brother and it's not just a few other core leaders thinking of these new ideas and innovations, but when we can get a lot of the company, a lot of people in the company, no matter how high or small they are in the company, thinking forwardly. What are new things we can get into? What are new sectors of the market? What are new ventures? What are new verticals? What are new traffic sources? What are new ways that we can, what are new angles? What are new types of creatives, right? If we can get more of this thinking within the company and we can get the ideas to kind of off of me and more the company coming up with these ideas. I think this is something that's going to take our company to a much higher level. And it's not just my company, but I believe that if any company can get this culture of where the ideas are not just sprouting from like one or two people. In our industry, it's been a little bit of a problem because sometimes companies in our industry of performance marketing have been run by like one or two leaders or a small group of leaders. And the issue is a lot of the innovation and a lot of the forward thinking, a lot of the breakthroughs and the plans and the next steps have generally just come from the 1 to 3 brains. And the issue with this model is you're only going to go as far really as these 1 to 3 brains can go in terms of coming up with the concept or the idea or the strategy or the plan or what's working or what we should get into. So I believe for our business, for any business, having this huge culture of thinking, and we do have some ideas as well. We're thinking of maybe even possibly implementing things like incentives for coming up with the innovations, like some kind of innovation bonus, things like that. We're trying to plan out how to motivate and incentivize this development. But I know just conceptually that if we're able to pull this off, I want to be more like an Apple. I want to be more like an Amazon, where it's not just Bezos, it's not just Steve Jobs who, thought of every good idea. They have a team of people. My guess is that Steve Jobs probably sat at his desk, and the engineers and the growth people and the teams of people probably came to him and said, these are the ideas. We could either stick with the iPod, or we could convert the iPod into this phone, and then the phone can have the music on it, and then we make it touchscreen. And it's like, my guess is Steve Jobs was probably sitting back saying, that's a good idea. Let's go with that one. Or why don't we take a vote and see which direction we want to go? But it was like, if Apple was all up to Steve Jobs having to think of every single idea himself, I don't think it would have succeeded as a company nearly as much as it has. In fact, Apple could even have just become like a outdated company, because let's say that Steve Jobs came up with the original idea of the MacBook computer, right? Like that big desktop computer. Let's just say that was his original idea. If that's all the innovation that happened in the company, and the company missed out on the iPad and the iPhone and all of this other stuff, it wouldn't be the company it is today, because it would have just been all up to Steve Jobs, and maybe Steve would not have thought about that iPad or that iPhone. So it's like having this council, having this group of thinkers is what I'm realizing is very, very important. So let's go back to the combination of skills and personal development. So I was giving you a glimpse at my life. What skills do I want to improve in my life? So when I analyze myself, I think I'm pretty motivated. I think my personal development is pretty good. Could I use more of it? Maybe everyone could always use a little bit more personal development, or character improvement, or work ethic, or time management, right? But for me, what I'm realizing if I'm able to improve this skill of being a visionary, and then forming those teams of thinkers, getting that innovation flowing, getting that growth flowing, and those ideas flowing outside of me, multiplying myself in that sense. If I'm able to work on that and improve that skill, if I become very, very skilled at that, putting together teams of thinkers, getting that innovation going, right? What I'm realizing is that's a skill that I would like to improve on. And then as now I can go out and I can deliberately work on that skill. I can work on improving that skill in my life, thinking about how to improve that skill. So what I recommend, like I said earlier, assess yourself. Where do you need the most help? Do you really need the most help on the skill side or the character side? Pick a side to start with, and then start working on it. If you're a media buyer, and you just like don't really make the best like landing pages, and it's like your landers are always they're not quite as good as everyone. Or let's say you are a media buyer, but the only thing you're really good at is Facebook, but you have no idea how to really do Google ads or YouTube or display native GDN. Maybe one of the skills that you need to add to your you know portfolio this year as a media buyer is perhaps another traffic source. And because that can make you a more valuable media buyer. I mean, maybe you're a media buyer that's pretty comfortable producing like $1 million a month of revenue sales, right? Let's say you're able to master display and some Google, YouTube ads, maybe some TikTok, whatever it is. If you're able to master that additional one or two traffic sources, maybe you're raising your value, you're raising your skills, you're suddenly becoming a more valuable media buyer. And let's say when you increase those skills, you're able to somehow produce $2 million a month of revenue. You've doubled your revenue, you've doubled your commissions, possibly your skills, right? So it's all boils down to the skills, and you have to combine those skills with the character traits, the personal development, the discipline. When those two things come together, and assessing yourself, being honest with yourself, and being like, where do I need to improve the most? And then deliberately working on those things on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. How am I doing? Let's go back to the example of the traffic source thing. Hold yourself accountable. Set a goal. Say by June, I want to be scaled up on Google. I want to be scaled up on some native ads, or I want to be scaled up on some TikTok by X date, June. And you're not going to give up everything and devote all your time to the new thing, but you're going to be disciplined about it. You're going to set apart, like maybe 7% or 8% of your week becomes focusing on the new skill, mastering the new thing. And if you can raise those skills, you're going to earn more, most likely. You're going to become more employable. You're going to have more value. You're going to produce more value for a company, for what you're doing, yourself, whatever you're doing. The skills are going to translate in to earnings. And then you don't have to be like one of those people where, if you lose your job, you're scrambling for some other job. It's like, no, you got skills. It's like if you lost your job tomorrow, you could call any company and say, company, you know, here's what I do, here's what I'm good at. I can guarantee if I work for you, I'm going to take this, division of your business to this level or this, right? It's like you're confident in what you're doing, and those skills they can last with you forever. It's so important to be developing these skills, but deliberately doing it is what we're getting to here. It's not just like, oh, I happen to get skilled, or I just get skilled because I watched a few training. It's like, no, actually putting together a plan where it's like, man, 3 times a week I'm going to be training, seminars, reading books. I'm going to set aside like an hour where I just like think. What I respected someone at that MLM, the CEO of that MLM company. I was very interested in what he did. He said that every day, for 1 hour a day, he just sat in like a big leather chair in his office or something with no phone, no computer, no nothing. He just sat in this chair for like an hour and was just thinking of like ideas and like thinking of strategies and plans. And it's like, when was the last time anyone has done that? Like, set apart that time. It doesn't have to be 1 hour every day, but it's like, when was the last time that anyone has like just sat in a chair as an entrepreneur for like an hour and just like kind of let their brain go and just thought about like, okay, what are the next kind of things I want to get into? What could I get into? What's working for other people in the industry? If it works for them, it could work for me. What are some other verticals? What are some products? Where can I find an offer? Like, where can I get a client? Where could you start thinking, you're like, I kind of stink at like video ads. Well, how can I get better at video ads? Maybe I need to get some kind of freelancer on my team that just makes my video ads, or maybe your problem is that you take so much time like doing your creatives. Like, I know some media buyers, they take so long. It's like, sometimes I've told media buyers, like, can you make some ads for like whatever, and it's been like 7 days later and they're like, oh, I've just almost done with the creative. It's like, dude, really? It's like, if we have a new product we want to launch, it really takes like 7 days to like get some creatives together. And I mean but that's in my opinion, that's just kind of a lack of skill, because if you had the right skills and the right setup, you'd be like, yeah, we're going to launch the new product, we're going to launch the new opportunity, and the creatives are going to be there, in a day or two, like, boom, ready. They might not be the most perfect creatives or the best ones off the gate, but at least the thing is going live. It's not a week later and there's like no movement, no traction, right? So figure out where you need to improve those skills, write it down, start dedicating yourself to these skills. And what I can really say is that there's a very high probability that as you increase the skills, you're going to increase your income. It would be very shocking for me if you increase the skills, you got so good at all of these things that you should be good at to succeed in whatever you're doing, and then you come to me in 2 years and you're like, I did all that, I'm now like, the best media buyer at display, and I can get anything profitable on GDN and Taboola, but for some reason I'm just like not earning anything, right? That would be so shocking to me. Most likely it's going to be the opposite story, where it's like, dude, I listened to your audio and I just like really focused on this 2 or 3 skills that I needed to get better at, and now I'm like a millionaire. I make like $2 million a year, and it's not even very hard, and it's easy. It's like 2 million is nothing. I can make 4 million a year, right? it's it's all in the skills, and you're only going to go as far as those skills can get you. So guys, I hope this was motivating. I hope it gave you some homework, some things to work on, because for me, it's this stuff is being implemented in my life as well, this skills development. So guys, take this home with you. Also, I've been making these podcasts not as frequently. I mean, we've been very, very busy in the business. So at first I was doing the podcast every week and every couple weeks. The podcast is now maybe an every 2 to 4 week thing for me. But what I want to do is when I release one of these podcasts, I want it to be so good that you really get a lot of meat out of it. You're like, okay, awesome. Like, I don't even need one of these podcasts every week because I have enough homework here to carry me on for months or years. So, guys, look out for the next podcast in about 4 weeks, and we'll see you soon. All right, this is Peter. Check it out. Bye.